It is just past high noon, 12:04. Good afternoon and welcome. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And the Matt Murphy Show starts right now. It's our episode 307. Happy to have you with us on a Tuesday, March 28, 2023. A very sad day in the community, a sad day across the United States as we continue to discuss the aftermath of the tragic shooting at the Covenant School yesterday morning that started just after 10 o'clock in the morning. It's hard to believe that it's just over 24 hours old. We'll continue to have that discussion over the course of the day today during our portion of the broadcast day. We will not ignore other breaking news items that are coming, and we will share some of those breaking news items, not just in the newscast, top and bottom of the hour, but also comment on some of the things happening around the world that do not have to do with the tragedy of the event at the Covenant School. However, it will be obviously our primary focus of conversation as we move through the show today. We will discuss the ins and outs of a very complex situation, a complex set of circumstances, and a set of circumstances that will lead to a more dynamic and even yet still more complex discussion. A discussion about media and miscommunication versus communication, about intentional mischaracterization of the goings-on around us, and how that can lead individuals who are already mentally unstable to do awful and evil things. We will talk about the individual responsible for these acts. We will dehumanize that person as much as humanly possible so as to dissuade anyone else from an effort such as this one. We will applaud and celebrate the first responders. I get emotional even saying it. We will play for you at some point this hour, and I will provide, necessarily so, a running commentary of what is going on. The 6 minutes released by the Metro Nashville Police Department of bodycam footage. It is about 3 minutes of one police officer and 3 minutes of the other police officer. There were multiple officers on the scene at the time that the shooter was taken down yesterday at 10:27 in the morning. 2 officers engaged. Those 2 officers are being celebrated, rightly so, as heroes. Equally heroic, the first responders that were inside of each and every one of those classrooms where there were children present. Those were first responders too. You know, it has been a running mantra of mine for years. And I say it understanding that some will intentionally mischaracterize the intent of my comment. But we must come to a point in our society where we all call each and every one of ourselves first responders. I understand why we do it the way we do it. I understand why we need to change it. Each and every one of us are first responders in our own way. And thank God, despite the loss of 6 lives yesterday, thank God that the people within the Covenant School knew that. Otherwise, as tragic as this situation is, it could have been so much worse. The realities and the stories individually of what went on in each and every one of those classrooms will eventually come out. But here's what we know. We know that this school received an amount of training necessary to give them the information needed to respond in the best possible way at the time that a mentally deranged individual intent on murder and death breached the security of the school by firing into glass windows and walked in with the intent of killing as many people as possible. We not only thank God that there were men and women ready to respond in uniform individuals who did so and neutralized the threat, but there were also men and women armed with information that understood what to do to save lives. Things like kick plates on doors and shades in windows. I've now heard stories, and maybe you have as well, that teachers and young children, even when the doors were knocked on and it was announced that it was police outside, would not come to the door. And that's the right thing to do. We were told, and I don't know if this is so or not, I've not confirmed it, but that eventually an intercom announcement was made at Covenant School telling the youngsters and adults alike that the next person that would be at their school door would be a police officer and would be a voice of safety and would lead them to a place of safety. If you're watching on SuperTalk TV, you'll see over my right shoulder, I have a whiteboard, and I kind of put up I don't know if it's the theme of the show for the day or just something. I mean, it's just whatever comes to my mind at the time that I'm doing it. Just something for you SuperTalk TV viewers to chew on. And I was trying to figure out what to say about this event. And I was reminded of one of my personal heroes, Fred Rogers. Most of you know the story, but I'll share it for those of you who do not. Fred Rogers would say that, and he told this many, many times over his incredible and illustrious career, that when he was a child and he would see negative or bad things on television, more often than not at the time, it was of a natural disaster, hurricane, tornado, or whatnot. And it would scare him, and he would have a difficult time understanding what was going on. And his mother would say to him, look for the helpers. There are always people helping. And so my initial inclination was to write on my whiteboard behind my right shoulder, look for the helpers. And that felt wrong, because that is a message for a child. And these are not childish times. Yes, obviously, we need to look for the helpers. Obviously, we cherish and honor those who put on a uniform, whether it's the Metro Nashville Police Department, whether it's the fire department, whether it's an EMT, an ambulance driver, a doctor, or a nurse. Of course, we honor the first responders. But we also live in times when we must be the first responders. And not only must we look for the helpers, we must be one. And I am here today to have a conversation about the politicalization of everything that went down in Nashville yesterday. I'm here today to talk about the heroism of those police officers, to talk about the fragility of childhood and how so much of the thin veneer of a beautiful society was shattered yesterday for children. Obviously, I'm here today to talk about guns, and I'm here today to talk about transgenderism and all of the rest of it. Mostly what I'm here today to do, because it's the only thing I know to do, is to try to be a helper for you in the way that I am best suited to do that. So we open up the phone lines at 615-737-9986. We open up the super text line at the same telephone number. And I give you an opportunity to talk. At our best, we are a reflection and ballast of this community. And before others come in and attempt to take over the narrative of this story, it is ours to discuss. More broadly, I understand that it's an American story, and even more broadly still, I understand that it's a story about the way of the world today. But first and foremost, it is ours. I am honored to consider myself among your number, and I hope that you feel the same way. I'm not here to overdramatize or to be sappy or maudlin when not need be. But I have a difficult time getting the image of that young girl, I believe it was a young girl, young child. Most of you probably have seen it by now. Frightened. Illusions of a peaceful world shattered. Sitting on a bus with her face pressed against the glass. Emotionally destroyed and scared. It's time for us to be helpers. And so we'll try to do that on the show today. Here's what we know. The rest of the mainstream media, for whatever reason, for their own purposes, are attempting to confuse you. The shooter, whose name I will invariably say, but I will attempt not to because I don't want to glorify this. It is known to criminologists and those that study these types of things that copycat shooters or people of this nature, they appreciate and gravitate toward the notoriety that is received when something like this happens. It is a necessary evil that we discuss the shooter. It is not something that we want to do. But you have to. So I'll try to avoid any and all conversation about the specifics of the shooter, except to say this was a woman who desired to transition to being a man in such a way that they were described as a transgender person. I don't care what a murderous killer wants to be called via their pronouns, and I'm going to revert back to their biological sex. That is my justification for referring to the shooter as a she or a her, because she was a her. Anything beyond that regarding that person's mental state is a matter to me of a mental disorder, having nothing to do with whether or not they want to be transgender, having everything to do with the fact that they desired to kill innocent people, including children. Now, I will say this as a way of opening the conversation. The easiest way to describe it, I suppose, would be I am a straight white male. And so, as a straight white male, invariably, when a straight white male engages in some sort of evil activity, such as what we saw yesterday at Covenant School, the mainstream media blasts that out. Oh, it's a straight white male. And invariably, they start talking about white nationalism or white supremacy in this level of nonsense. An obvious attempt to, in some form or fashion, blame me for the activities of a deranged individual. And I don't like that very much as a straight white male. I don't like being blamed. Well, most of the time, these are straight white men. And with that in mind, we would be just as guilty of that nonsense if we were to suggest that this is the nature of a transgendered person. It's not. It's the nature of a person who has severe mental issues. However, I would suggest to you that the conversation about severe mental issues is being significantly hampered by individuals in mainstream media and others who attempt to shelter those with severe mental issues in a myriad of ways, in such a way that takes us further from a real conversation that we need to have about mental incapacitation and the ability to get people help that need it, even if they do not want it. When we have shootings, one camp of individuals, and we know the types, they all gravitate to the we need less guns camp. And they always talk about assault rifles, which is a nonsensical argument because the vast majority of murders that are committed in the United States of America in any given year, I mean, it is not even close. It's 90-something%. I want to say it's like 98%. I can look up the FBI statistics if you'd like the actual number, are committed with handguns. So anyone telling you that assault rifles or a ban on assault rifles would move towards solving this issue, they're just replacing one firearm with a different type of firearm, and they're really not getting to the meat of the matter, which is mental incapacity to understand right from wrong. And an inability for any of us to do anything about it. And that's where I'm at. We need to have that conversation. Embedded in that conversation is a level of miscommunication by the mainstream media, and I'm talking about the New York and the Washington, D.C. media. I'm talking about the hashtag Never CNN media and the ABCs and the CBSs and the NBCs, all of which mischaracterized intentionally legislation that was passed by the General Assembly regarding trans individuals or those who would classify themselves as same. And I have no idea because I don't want to speculate on what's inside of this manifesto, but I would say this. I believe with every fiber of my being that the continued mischaracterization of what's going on in the state of Tennessee had something to do with this. Repeatedly on the national front, we are told that there's a war against trans people, which isn't so. Certainly not in the state of Tennessee. But you hear something like this over and over and over again, you plant a seed inside of the brain of someone who is mentally incapable of understanding right and wrong, and that seed grows into hatred and anger. And so, yes, I'm not going to pussyfoot around it when I know that those who were intentionally mischaracterizing the legislation that happened in Nashville, Tennessee, this legislative session, have indirectly blood on their hands too. If you repeat the garbage over and over and over again, then eventually someone will believe you. All right, so we'll try to do this together. We'll cover some of the other news items of the day as well. And we'll get your thoughts on all of this. 615-737-9986. It's the Matt Murphy Show, 1222 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. What's one of the biggest mistakes that I find that investors make? Well, it's typically buying based on past performance. We look at our 401k and try to decide which fund should I buy and tend to look at historical past performance over 3, 5. You even hear investment advisors telling people to look at 3, 5, and 10-year track records. Problem is that what do markets do? They go up and they go down. Well, Wyndhams have a great past performance, here to here. So we end up buying high. We found that there was one study back in 1986, and it was called the Brinson-Hidden-Biebauer study. And they were looking at what drove investment returns more than anything else. And the study sort of looked like this. They said, oh, you know, stock selection, about 4% of investment differences were due to stock selection. About 2% was due to market timing differences. Asset mix, asset allocation, that was the big deal. Now what they found, which was fascinating, was that when the pension plans engaged in these two activities, in one study it showed that 100% of the time, investment returns were lower and it increased risk. Not something you want when you're an investor. So this is something that we teach investors to help them sidestep some of these issues. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
I did see the head school person, and she was in the hallway by the office. That's the only one. They were spread out. Wasn't in one common area, but they were spread out.
Chief Drake, can you talk about the response in terms of targeting other buildings, other places?
There was some writings in the manifesto about other locations, but as far as it being an actual target, I can't confirm that at this time.
Chief, can we talk about your body cam footage? Do you feel like your officers did everything right?
One at a time,
Sorry.
please.
Amber Walker with CNN. Just about the 6 victims who were killed. Where exactly were they? Were they walking through the hallways when this happened? And I also heard peripherally that perhaps the head of the school may have ran towards the shooter.
It's very possible the head of the school could have done that. I can't confirm that one way or the other. I do know she was in the hallway by herself. There was a confrontation. I'm sure you can tell the way she was laying in the hallway. There was the custodian, the African American, as she shot through the door to enter. She sprayed rounds through the glass, striking him. You could see where he came to rest. As far as the others, they were just spread out in different locations. I can't say it was a confrontation, but they were met. She met the head person in the hallway.
So she was probably the
This
first
man right here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Chief, you mentioned the guns, the multiple guns, and that the shooter was under the care of a doctor. Is there any law in this state that would have allowed police to take those guns away from this person had it been reported?
If it had been reported, there's not a law for that, but had it been reported that she was suicidal or that she was going to kill someone and had been made known to us, then we would have tried to get those weapons. But as it stands, we had absolutely no idea actually who this person was, if she even existed.
So. Chief, can you talk a little bit about the time?
What else did the parents say? Did they expect anything like this to happen?
So we know yesterday the Ms. Hill was leaving out of the residence. She had a red bag. They asked her what was in the red bag, and I think she just dismissed it because it was a motherly thing, and didn't look in the bag because at the time she didn't know that her daughter had any weapons and didn't think any differently. Again, they lost a child, so it's very traumatic for them. So,
Chief, watching the body cam.
I think you were first.
Yeah.
So.
Could you talk about the police response? I know they engaged the shooter pretty quickly once they got to the school, but can you talk about the events that led up from when they got the call, what time did they arrive at the school, and could you talk about that time, because it appears about maybe like 14 minutes or so?
Yeah, so they got the call at 10:13, and by 10:24 they had engaged the suspect. As they arrived on the property, there were police cars being hit by gunfire. The suspect was in an upper level. We believe there's been some training of being able to shoot from a higher level. And her gunfire, from the video I've seen, she stood away from the glass so she wouldn't be an easy target to be shot. But as officers were approaching the building, there was gunfire going on. They went in, they went through door by door as we clear buildings. They heard gunfire. and immediately ran to that and then took care of this horrible situation.
And how long did it take officers to actually get to the school initially from when the first call came in?
From the time it went out from 10:13 to 10:24, it was over. The exact time, arrival time, I'm not sure. I know that myself, I ran emergency, and as I got there, they were coming out bloody and all kind of things were happening, so I barely missed being able or being there to go in as well. So it was really quick, the response. And I think you were next. So.
Yeah, Chief, I was just going to ask you about the two officers whose body cam we've seen this morning. Had they ever been placed in a situation like that before?
To my knowledge, I do not remember if those two in particular have been in that situation. Officer Collazo has worked as a paramedic with the SWAT team, so I'm sure he's had some type of weapons training. I was really impressed that with all that was going on, the danger that somebody took control and said, let's go, let's go, let's go, and went in and took care and just try to end this situation. But as far as being in this before, I'm unsure. You, sir?
Sir, a friend of the families has reported, a friend of the Hale family has reportedly said that Audrey was autistic. Can you speak to that if you know if that's in fact true?
I can't confirm that. I've heard that, but I can't confirm if that's true or not.
Just do one more question. One more question and we're going to stop. One more.
Just on the officers, how are they faring today, 24 hours on?
Any indication of the significance of yesterday, why the shooter may have done this yesterday? And also, do you have anything that could indicate whether the school was targeted for religious reasons?
I can't confirm either. I'm not sure if that we're approaching a holy period at Easter and all of that. I can't confirm any of that. Do not know, and so why she targeted that particular church. We do know she was a student at that church at one point. But unsure right now if that was the reason why. And I think I'll take one more.
Yeah, just on your two officers there, how are they feeling today, 24 hours on?
So I talked to them earlier, and they're trying to decompress, trying to make sense of all of this. I talked to President Biden. He's going to reach out and talk to them as well. They're just trying to do whatever they can with their families and just kind of remove themselves from all of this.
So. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
All right, that wraps up a press conference being held by the Metro Nashville Police Department. In the midst of all this chaos, Chief John Drake has done an excellent job explaining calmly and rationally to the assembled media everything we know and the things that we do not know regarding the motivations of the shooter and the actions of the heroic police department. It's 12:31. We'll be back in just a moment on Super Talk. Normally at this time I would tell you about Defend Systems and encourage you, if you are a business owner, a church organizer, or a decision maker at a school or a place of business, to contact Brink and hit him up for exactly what he can offer you to help fortify your situation at your public arena. At this time, however, I want to spend my moment thanking Brink and the good people of Defend Systems. Brink has made it part of his life's work to make the streets safer, to make your home safer, to make your place of business safer. He did so for 18 years as a part of the Metro Nashville Police Department, and now he does so with Defend Systems. Many of you might know that Defend Systems gave counseling and fortification to the Covenant School about a year ago. I firmly believe, I know in my heart, that Brink saved people's lives based on his expert training, and I want to thank him for that. If you would like to, defendsystems.com. That's defendsystems.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy Show in progress. Brian Wilson after us. It is information-fueled and opinion-driven News Talk Radio right here in Music City, Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you for being with us on this Tuesday edition. 615-737-9986. I promised I would get to a conversation with you good people, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. I chose as a show, and I know everyone's a little bit different, and I applaud those differences between yours truly or Pamela or Dan Mandis, Brian Wilson, that we're all going to approach this a little bit differently. And I made the conscious decision not to have anyone on but you on today's broadcast. As a matter of fact, I invited exactly two people on the show today. One of them was Mayor John Cooper, and the other was Congressman Andy Ogles. And I've not received a response from either of those individuals, but if they should respond, I'd love to have them on to speak to this matter. That said, we'll have plenty of time to talk to political figures and delve into partisan politics. You may take the show in any direction of your choosing. With that in mind, Belle, help me out, by the way. Belle came back behind the glass today after a lengthy vacation and illness. I mean, that's technically correct, right?
Yeah, I always try to combine a little bit of being sick with, being.
No, I appreciate you doing so. I mean, it's a matter of convenience. Hey, I'm going to take some vacay, and also I'm going to go ahead and be sick now, so I'm not sick later. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That said, you look great, and thank you for everything you're doing today. Who's first?
We can start with Randy.
Okay, just go down the line.
Yeah.
Okay, Randy's in Pelham. Hey, Randy, how are you?
Okay. I just wanted to make a comment that while Joe Biden was vice president, he passed a law, only one that I know of, to make it illegal to have a gun at a church or school. And these shootings didn't start with that, but they got worse because it protected
Randy.
It protected the shooter. Yes.
Help me understand this. You said as vice president, Joe Biden passed a law?
Yes.
All right. Are you hearing what you're saying, Randy?
Yes,
Okay.
but I don't know.
So, all right. So, how did Joe Biden pass a law as vice president?
I must be talking over my head, but anyway, he did something about making it illegal to making a gun-free zone out of a church or a school, and the shootings got worse.
I'll have to look that up. I don't know exactly what you're referencing. I'm not trying to be mean-spirited, but vice presidents they can't pass laws. The Congress passes laws. And so anything that
anyway.
Well, yeah, he might have tried to champion it or might have been behind it. I do not believe that it is a fact that you cannot, based on any laws in the United States of America or in the state of Tennessee, I do not believe that it is illegal to keep and bear arms inside of a place of worship. I do believe that is up to the individual place of worship as to whether or not they would permit guns. Now, I could be wrong on the individual state front. I do not believe I'm wrong nationally, but I'll check into that, Randy, and you keep listening, and I'll try to get back to you on it, okay?
I sure will.
All right, man. Thank you. I appreciate the telephone call. Guy is next in Franklin. Guy, thank you for calling. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. I think that there is a direct correlation between deinstitutionalization and the proliferation of mental illness in this country. Like, when they closed mental asylums, it just exploded. And now it is in cabinet positions in our administration. And we're sending $100 billion to fight a proxy war with Russia while Putin openly mocks us from his podiums, mocking us for having transgender people in cabinet positions. And I think we could take that $100 billion, split it up into congressional districts. That's $200 million per congressional district. Why can we not use that money to employ homeless veterans that would happily take up arms and defend a school? Give them benefits packages. Why can we not do this? Tennessee has a surplus budget. Why can we not at a state level take it upon ourselves to do this? I mean, hypothetically speaking, $200 million could very easily fund a well-trained, well-armed force to guard our schools. And, Matt, I'll thank you. I'll hang up and I'll listen to you.
You know what, Guy, you're to unpack that telephone call would take the next 3 days, much less the next 3 hours or the next 3 minutes. I could not agree with Guy more. That we must, if you want to have a real conversation about why we see this happening more often in our modern society, we can have an ancillary conversation about guns. That's fine. But you will never get to the root cause of the matter until you talk about what Guy just brought up. We do not have a real-world functional ability to empirically examine an individual on the basis of their mental health and precognitively determine that they are a definitive danger to themselves and to other people. And because of this, and because of an inability to institutionalize individuals that we believe to be a threat above and beyond their control to decide it, we're seeing more and more and more mentally unstable people walking in our midst. And prior to any evaluation or prior to any specific mental diagnosis or prior to any temporary or semi-permanent incarceration in a mental facility, it is impossible for authorities to determine, to red flag those individuals when it comes to gun purchases. I do believe that it is an important part of this conversation in a grown-up fashion to have a discussion about how you prevent individuals who have mental disability from keeping and bearing arms. That prohibition is not in the Second Amendment. I've read it. I've read it multiple times. And nowhere does it say that we should have the ability to prevent mentally incapacitated individuals or mentally insane individuals, or however you want to put it, from keeping and bearing arms. But I think most rational and reasonable people would suggest that that's a good policy. That's a good rule of thumb. But Guy is exactly right. This is not to say that we did it the right way when we had mass mental incarceration in mental facilities. I could go over time and time again where people who were put in mental facilities maybe shouldn't have been there. I mean, the anecdotal examples are plentiful. But we need to have the conversation about how to bring it back, because we have way too many dangerous people walking the streets. It's 1247, Super Talk 99.7 WT, and Ricky is in Watertown. Hey, Ricky, thanks for holding. How are you?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Ricky. Thank you.
I watched the police cam footage of the when they entered the building and when they got there. It's unbelievable how fast they got there. And when they went in that building, they was ready. They had the plan. They ran up, 2 or 3 flights of stairs. No one hesitated. No one missed a damn step. It was unreal. They need to be highly commended on that.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And you can take an AR-15 or semi-automatic pistol, load it, cock the hammer back, and you can lay it on the floor or lay it on the table. It's not going to go off till somebody grabs it and pulls the trigger.
Yes, sir.
The problem is mental health. And when I say that, they need to start at the White House and come on down with it. I think they're ashamed of what will be the results of it, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do, Ricky. And you're right. I mean, the example that I give, remember a few years ago, someone out in Arizona, I think it was, found a Winchester that had been leaning against a cactus for 136 years. I'm not making this up, by the way. You can look it up.
Yeah,
and
I know what you're talking about.
And, Ricky, that gun didn't kill anybody in 136 years.
And it never went off. I mean,
It's amazing.
Until a crazy person gets a hold of it and decides they want to kill somebody, it ain't nothing going to happen.
Well, that's right. And the crux of the matter and what I'm interested in furthering the discussion on is how to prevent that crazy person from getting their hands on that weapon. Ricky, thank you for the call. Referencing the earlier caller, whose name I forget, it was 3 ago, so I'll never get it. There was Ricky, there was Guy, and then there was the previous caller. And I wasn't trying to be rude to the caller from Pelham. I think he's referencing the Gun-Free Zones Act of 1990, in which Joe Biden was a sponsor as a senator. The Gun-Free Zones Act was originally passed as Section 1702 of the Crime Control Act of 1990. I'm just reading here from, the basic description of it. It was first introduced in the U.S. Senate in February of 1990 by Senator Herb Cole of Wisconsin. It was then incorporated in the Crime Control Act of 1990 that was signed by President George H.W. Bush. It was eventually ruled on by the United States Supreme Court in 1995. It struck down the original law. The Gun-Free Zones Act of 1990 was amended so prosecution could only occur for crimes involving guns linked to interstate or foreign commerce. But that had to do with unauthorized individuals from knowingly possessing a loaded or unsecured firearm at a place that is a school zone. So that dealt with schools. It applies to public, private, and parochial elementary schools and high schools. So not necessarily to churches, although this was both. I would note that it has never once stopped someone from attacking a school, to my knowledge. And it defies common sense to suggest that it would. I am a believer that there is a way to reasonably discuss allowing trained teachers to have lockboxes with biometric codes by which they could access firearms in the event of a calamity like we saw yesterday. That might be a discussion for a different time, but it's a discussion that we need to have. It's 12:51. We'll continue talking with you on the phones. That is what today is about. 615-737-9986. 12:51 on Super Talk. It is spring, meaning summer is upon us. And if you're looking to get into swimsuit shape, thinking about losing a little weight, why not go one step further? Instead of just a diet plan that you get on and you shed pounds, but you don't necessarily get healthier as a result, why not go the full 9 yards and talk with Coach Scott and his team at LT360 about making it happen for you, not just this summer, but every summer permanently. I'm talking about a lifestyle of healthy living. I'm talking about holistic health where you do not depend on pills for your vim or vigor. Dr. Underwood can help in that regard, and Coach Scott can explain all of this for you. The pillars of a healthy life include things like hydration and circulation, getting moving again. And yes, of course, incomes dictate outcomes in terms of what you eat. But you can eat out of a grocery store. You don't have to eat out of a box provided by Coach Scott, and you can live a healthier lifestyle as a result. It just takes a little coaching. As a matter of fact, I like to say, you bring the want to, they'll bring the how to. LT360.com is the website, LT360.com. Call my good friends at LT360. A minute or so before the top of the hour news, and we'll continue the discussion ongoing today on the Matt Murphy Show on Supertalk 99.7 WTN. New developments coming in just over 24 hours after we learned the tragic news involving the Covenant School here in Nashville. And so we'll continue to take your telephone calls at 615-737-9986. We'll reset in just a moment to include body cam footage that was released this morning by the Metro Nashville Police Department showing the heroic actions of the officers responding to the scene. We'll get into that momentarily. And as I mentioned, your telephone calls. Plus, we will say the names of those lost. We need to remember those names. We do. 615-737-9986. Back in a moment. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and let's spend a moment talking about your air conditioning unit. It can be hard to find someone you trust when it comes to a large home repair or a large home purchase. That's what I'm here for, friends. Efficient Heating and Cooling is a small company with big service and big results. I trusted Jeff Eddy and his crew to do what's right every time. They've proved it time and time and time again. Jeff is the proud owner and an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. If you need a second opinion on your AC, if you've gotten an opinion that it needs to be replaced, do not replace it without an opinion from Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. And by the way, know this, a maintenance call, and I encourage you to get maintenance done, it will only cost you $125 and oftentimes less than that, max $125. No matter how many units you have at your residence, that's all you're going to get charged. So go ahead and make the call that so many others have made to Efficient Heating and Cooling, 615-784-4424, 615-784-4424, or efficienthvac.net. All right, here we go. Hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Show. We continue dissecting the news from yesterday, the tragedy that led to 6 victims losing their lives, the shooter shot dead and killed by Metro Nashville police officers who responded to the scene. We continue to offer our condolences to those families affected and the entire community at large, and offer an opportunity for you to speak about what to be done next. Whether it's a gun problem or a mental health problem, whether it's a little bit of both or a combination of neither, we will dissect it on the program today. We'll also give you the latest details of what we know as we had a press conference about an hour ago with Chief John Drake leading the press conference, giving us some additional details as to do me a favor, if you can, Bell, and try to find the press conference. We missed the beginning of it, and I want to re-rack it and get the beginning of that press conference. I imagine it's up on a variety of social media platforms by the Metro Nashville Police Department, but we'll re-rack that in the 2 o'clock hour for you, for those who perhaps missed it. There is an event being held, I assume, at the Legislative Plaza, somewhere outside of the state capitol, by gun control activist Shannon Watts of Moms Demand Action, who has already blamed the victims on social media platforms, saying, quote, if prayers alone worked, there wouldn't have been a mass shooting at a school where they pray. Apparently, that organization is holding some sort of demand, vigil, or whatnot at the Legislative Plaza currently, as we are speaking on air today. We also saw the body cam footage. For those sensitive to this type of thing, I warn you that it's difficult to watch in as much as you anticipate an encounter with an individual that has just killed 6 separate people, 3 of them 9-year-old children. One of the children was, I think, a week before 9, but they're describing that child as a 9-year-old. But other than that, and I understand that some are more anxious than others, I encourage you to do this. I encourage you to go and watch this video. So often it is the case that when police officers do something wrong or are accused of doing something wrong, that's the only time we see their body cam footage. We need to see this body cam footage, because I hope that each and every one of us are intimately aware of the dangerous position that police officers find themselves in every single day. And at any moment, one of them could be responsible for doing what one of these 2 police officers did yesterday. Rex Engelbert is a 4-year veteran of the Metro Nashville Police Force. Michael Colazzo, a 9-year veteran of the police force, and neither of them hesitated. And both of them took control of a situation and led officers to the fight. Go to the gunfire. As maddening and frustrating as Uvalde, Texas turned out to be, with the waiting and the waiting and the waiting and the waiting in that situation. God bless these two officers, and God bless the rest of the Metro Nashville Police Department. There was no waiting. There was immediate recognition that something had to be done to take down the shooter right there. And they did so. 615-737-9986. I can get into other aspects of all of this. I'll tell you what we do know. We do know that there has been an intentional misrepresentation, an intentional mischaracterization of several laws that have passed the General Assembly in recent months. And fight as we might here in Nashville, in our capital city. Fight as we might to attempt to, those of us who know the reality, we attempt to overcome the intentional mischaracterization of these laws to get to the truth. And sadly, far too many people across America believe it. They believe that there's some sort of war against trans people, that there's some sort of war against drag shows in Nashville and in Tennessee. And it isn't so. And you know it and I know it. And if you don't, I can help you. And sadly, someone with a level of mental incapacitation, such as this 28-year-old shooter, who described herself as transgender, I believe that when the facts are laid bare and the truth comes out about this so-called manifesto, we'll come to find out that she believed some of the intentional misrepresentation and intentional mischaracterization on the part of media types in this city and beyond. Oh, they're banning drag shows, they said about Tennessee. Wasn't so. Not true. Never was true. Oh, they're banning health care for trans people. That's what they said about us. And it wasn't true. And we knew it. And we tried to overcome the megaphone that the hashtag NeverCNNs have, the megaphone that the New York Times has, the megaphone that, and they incited the spirit of this attack. And it's time that we called it that. Were they directly responsible? No, of course not. The individual who is now dead was directly responsible in whatever deranged mental capacity she found herself in. But don't tell me that it doesn't matter when news organizations intentionally lie in order to boost their ratings, their readership, or their wokeness. Don't tell me it doesn't matter. And don't tell me that praying doesn't matter. Because, and I say this intentionally, by God, it does. All right, Jason's next up in Smyrna. Jason, thank you for your call. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Let me turn off my speakerphone. I was calling. I'm very much aware of what went on yesterday. I'm privileged to know one of the first responders that was there yesterday, one of the officers, and talked with him a little bit this morning. And the response that he had was, quote, "We were 14 minutes too late." And I asked specifically what could have been done differently. And his comment to me was to have an armed, trained, and capable response in the school was really the only thing that could have been done differently. So keep the Metro Nashville Police Department in your prayers. They're dealing with a lot. They did the best they could. I'm over church security at my church, and, textbook to everything that I know. And still, unless you have someone that's trained, that's there to take the fight and neutralize the threat, there's no other way that any of this could have been avoided, unfortunately.
No, and it's one of the reasons, and it is in no way designed, and thank you, Jason, for the call. It's in no way designed to cast any aspersion against the police officers that do such a heroic job, but it is a fact that we are the first responders. Police officers cannot be everywhere. We cannot possibly expect that we will have armed officers of the Metro Nashville Police Department, or any police department for that matter, at every place where there might be a criminal with murderous intent. We can arm ourselves with training and information and defensive weapons. A gun. Now, at this school, I don't know, and I can't speak to that. I know that they received the best training in the United States of America in terms of what to do in the event of a situation like this, because I know the person that trained them. And I've been through the training that they went through. Not only have I been through that training, I've been through extended training, tactical emergency casualty care training, that is also offered by the same company that offered the training that they went through in the event of a mass shooting situation. But as it is in most cases, now, Brink, Fiddler, and Defense Systems, they provide different types of training for different types of companies with regard to what those companies' policies might be in terms of arming yourself. The training, for example, that we went through at Cumulus Nashville was training above and beyond discussions about gun ownership and carrying a weapon. This was defensive posture, defensive tactics, what to do if you find yourself in a scenario where you hear gunshots. Do you know the layout of your facility? Do you know what to do if you have to barricade yourself inside of a room? I mean, the real world ramifications of something like this going down. So I know that they were armed with that. I don't know if they were armed with any other weapons. And obviously, schools and churches, I'll give you an example. When I went through the tactical emergency casualty care course several weeks ago with Brink and his team, and we had the opportunity to meet with several Metro Nashville police officers and several members of the Nashville Police Department SWAT team. There were a number of people, I want to say, of the 24 class, there's a max of 24 in each individual class. And of the class, probably 8 of them were from churches. Large church organizations that want to know in a dangerous time how to best protect themselves and prevent something like this from happening. So there's a great awareness that this is going on around the world. And there's a great awareness that we can't expect police officers to be everywhere every time. That said, it has been my consistent conversation with police officers that have found themselves in a situation like this, and I've had any number of them over the years, that they only wish that they could have been there sooner to save every life. And as I say that, I look up and look. There's Mayor John Cooper on national television from this morning. It's a sad circumstance that he does not talk directly to Nashville, but I guess that's his decision. Mike is next regarding mental health. Thank you for the call, Mike. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Hey, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to talk about mental illness and mental health. It falls under a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people in the world, in the United States, for that matter, that have mental issues. If you look at all these shootings or suicide by cop or Buffalo, New York, or, I mean, they're real quick to say mental health issues, and I think you can't do anything really about it. And each individual is different. But some of the things that classify as a mental issue or mental illness, happiness is one of them. I mean, you can be happy, and they'll say, he's too happy. But some of the mental issues that I've listed here is like feelings of confusion, feelings of inadequacy, gender identity disorder, self-esteem. These are all fall under mental illnesses, chemical imbalances, and I'm speaking from experience.
Mike, are you moving around while you're trying to have this conversation? Because I'm having a difficult time hearing you. It's like you're.
Yeah.
It's like you're. Are you mobile? Can you? Is it possible for you to remain static for a moment so we can hear exactly what you're saying?
Yeah, I just pulled over.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm sorry. I don't want to miss anything you're saying.
Well, all these issues pretty much fall under, psychological disorders, and mental illness is exactly what that is. It's a disorder. And how do you address it? Man, I tell you, you ain't gonna like my answer, so I'm not gonna say it. But
well, how in the world do you know I'm not gonna like your answer if you don't say it?
Well, because they outlawed it. They don't do that surgery no more for mental illness patients.
You want to? Are you suggesting that you would like to offer frontal lobotomies to people?
No.
Oh, I thought that was the one that you were referring to, the one where they go by the eye and they do the little pick right beside the eye and they do the little wiggle. Yeah.
Well, no, that would be extreme.
Once again, the line of communication seems to be breaking down, Mike, and I got a lot of people holding on the line. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be rude to you, but we've got to be able to hear you and understand you, and I was having some difficulty with the phone. So your suggestion is that we're all mental cases. At least that's what I heard, right? Happiness is a mental condition. Well, it is a mental condition. It's not a mental instability. I think most people understand the distinction between someone with mild to moderate mental issues. We all, if you want to get real broad on the spectrum, we all have got something going on, right? What was it that John Irving taught us in The World According to Garp? We're all terminal cases, and we're all ultimately mental cases. We're talking about people that pose a direct and immediate danger to others or to themselves. Just to clear that up. And once again, Mike, not trying to be short with you, but just the phone, we were having difficulty. 615-737-9986. We'll continue your calls, your thoughts, your community conversation in the aftermath of all of this. It is 122 on Super Talk. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. For those who missed the press conference that happened, maybe you were at lunch, away from your desk or whatnot. I know that many of you are coming and going as the day goes on. By the way, 125, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name's Matt Murphy. I'm here until 3 o'clock this afternoon, turning it over to Brian Wilson at that time with The Drive. For those of you who missed it, we will rack that press conference right at 2 o'clock to share that press conference with you. I will get more of your thoughts and calls as we continue our community-based discussion about the emotional aftermath of what happened yesterday and what potentially to do to prevent it from happening in the future. At 1:35 or so, I will, because I think it's important, share with you the audio for what it's worth of the responding officers. It's about 6 minutes in length, and it's cut basically in half between Officer Engelbert and Officer Collazo. I think this is important because they went inside of a building that had alarms going off and a security breach, and they had zero idea, what they were walking into, what they were running into. But run they did, and did not hesitate to run to the point of a gun that was firing, and to nullify that threat. So we'll do that in just a little bit. In the meantime, Lindsay's been holding for some time. Lindsay, thank you for the patience. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I just want to bring one quick thing up that I keep thinking about and no one, I don't think, has said as much of. I'm a female, and I was thinking about if I were to take hormone therapy to be a man, that would be comparable, I think, to puberty. And I've been talking to a lot of guys about what you go through in puberty, and I would think that maybe that would provide an accelerant to the feelings that someone's already feeling. And I've heard that this is not the first murder like this, and I know people don't want to talk about this type of stuff, but I would like to know and have some kind of study about what do these drugs do to women that want to transition.
I do not know, nor have I have not heard, Lindsay, that there was any pharmaceuticals involved in this individual's life. In other words, we heard that there was some counseling or some sort of mental issue that was being addressed. I don't know if that had anything to do with their self-proclaimed transgenderism or not. So I understand what you're saying, that if you're taking pharmaceuticals, if you're taking medicine, that's going to affect your psychology. That's obviously going to affect your emotional state. That's what it's designed to do. But
what I'm talking about.
Hold on, let me finish the statement, and then I'll let you talk. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and presume that the shooter was taking drugs when we don't know that yet. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, but as an Uber driver, I also hear when people are going through things, they have, to my understanding, I'm not versed, I'm just curious, I'm just throwing it open to you and the audience, is like when you transition, I believe you have to take hormones, especially notably testosterone.
Well, and hold on. I don't mean to be interrupting, but let's back up for a second. So, and I think yes, you're right, that when typically what we would think of as someone who has decided they don't want to be a man anymore, they want to be a woman, or they don't want to be a woman anymore, they want to be a man, they begin that process of transitioning. Then there's necessarily drugs, their intakes of drugs, and then eventually there's surgeries, right? Well, the world has changed right in front of our eyes, Lindsay, and now, unfortunately, because this muddies the waters considerably, a person who declares that they don't want to be a guy anymore, they want to be a girl, that's all they have to do in order for some in society to demand that we recognize them as a female. So sadly, I can't assume just because they're described as transitioning that they're on drugs. There are some transitioning transgendered people that have done nothing, that have taken no drugs, that simply are dressing differently. Or so but we are, as a society, supposedly to honor their desire to be called by different pronouns and all of that. So I understand where you're coming from. Typically, if you hear that someone is transgendered, that means that they're on some sort of drugs to help them in that process. And I agree with you. That's the way that we should be defining these things, but sadly we're not anymore. Does that make sense?
It does. And the last thing I'll say is thank you so much for every single thing you said, because even I myself, too, at work have learned, and I didn't know you're supposed to fight with anything you have if there is someone trying to attack you. I mean, I think this stuff, keep it going, because we all as a society, I think if we were less of a soft target, maybe also that would help these situations more.
Well spoken and true. I mean, there's no question that you have to make, I mean, God forbid any of you find yourself in a circumstance such as what we saw yesterday. But should you find yourself in that circumstance, you have to make decisions. You know, hide, flee, or fight. Run, hide, or fight. I've heard it said 100 different ways. Something that was brought up a little while ago, and I just want to note this, that yes, while the media has downplayed it, there have been 4 separate notable incidents of physical, actual violence, gun-based violence, by individuals who identified as either trans or non-binary. The Colorado Springs shooter was identified as non-binary. The Denver, Colorado shooting, that individual identified as trans. The Aberdeen shooting, that individual identified as trans. And the Nashville shooting, obviously, this individual identifies as trans. That is not to suggest that every straight white male is a shooter just because straight white males shoot. Nor would anyone suggest that by the nature of classifying yourself as trans, you are violent. But some are violent. Obviously. 133 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy for the only locally owned safe specialty company in Nashville. Actually, it's probably the only safe specialty company in Nashville, now that I think about it. You know, a lot of these companies, let's talk, okay? Mark knows this. I know this. You ought to know this. A lot of these places that's got like 3 safes in the corner over there and the dust on top of them, and you ask them about it, and they have to go find the manual, and they wouldn't know the combination to the safe if you paid them $100 to tell it to you. I mean, that's the way that some treat it. And look, that's all well and good, but if you depend on a safe to protect yourself or to protect your valuables, to protect your loved ones, those closest to you, in the event of unfortunate violence that might occur, you owe it to yourself to stop by Nashville Safe House and to see the finest selection of safes on the market anywhere that I've ever been, and anywhere within the Southeast. And Mark's been doing this for 30 years now. His birthday's coming up, as a matter of fact, and we're going to wish him a happy birthday, hopefully with an event out at his place. The Safe House has set the standard that other safe companies try and copy, but good luck. We're not going to catch up with them. They have safes and vaults for all shapes and sizes, and I want you to get in there. And also remember, guns. You need a gun safe to protect those things that protect your family, and gun safes are sales tax free. Go to the Safe House. You can go to NashvilleSafeHouse.com. That's NashvilleSafeHouse.com, or 4th Avenue South in Nashville. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Getting back to your calls coming up in just a couple of minutes, so you guys hang out. 137, almost 138. We will re-rack the beginning portions of the press conference that happened a little over an hour ago. That's coming up in about 20 or so minutes, so be on the lookout for that as well. Want to make sure that all of you who wish to hear from Chief John Drake have the ability to do so, and I understand during the lunchtime hour that many of you perhaps were away from your radio. That said, I understand that this is not necessarily conducive to radio, but I feel strongly enough about it, and I feel strongly enough that I can kind of walk you through and describe what's going on, that you hear the audio transmission from the body cam released by the Metro Nashville Police Department. I've watched this twice, and I'll be honest with you, I can't remember any cursing in it. I don't think there is toward the end.
If there is
we'll
any, it doesn't really stand out in my mind either.
I don't. And if we hear it now, we'll dump it. There is not a lot of conversation, but I'm going to walk you through this. You're about to hear two different body cam audio from two different body cams. One is Officer Rex Engelbert. He is one of the individuals that shot and killed the assailant. The other is from Officer Michael Colazzo, and I'll tell you when it switches. What you hear at the beginning, you hear Officer Engelbert getting to the scene in his vehicle and getting out of his vehicle, and then I'm going to walk you through this as it plays in the background.
Just got an update. It's going to be first floor, main lobby. I'm making entry on the front side. I got a civilian that's putting in here.
He's getting out of his vehicle. He's running to the back of his vehicle and immediately goes to the back of the vehicle and gets a weapon, a long gun. And he is.
They're all locked down, but we have two kids that we don't know where they are.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
He's moving as he speaks to that individual, attempting to move to the side of the facility. He racks it.
Yeah.
Into my window zone. They're upstairs.
And so that woman there is getting information from upstairs, and she just imparted that.
Let's get three.
All the way down this hall. They said it's Fellowship Hall. The end of this hall is Fellowship Hall. They just said they heard gunshots down there, and then upstairs are a bunch of kids.
Let's go. I need three.
He's asking for individuals to assist him in getting in. He's got keys, and he's now entered the facility.
Metro Police!
And they're clearing rooms now.
On me. I don't know where he is.
They're clearing a door.
Metro Police, open the door.
They're clearing the room. They're going to each corner of the room, making sure that the room is clear.
Small bathroom. Clear.
And then as soon as they got that room clear, they're out of that room to the next room. They don't want anything to happen behind them.
Door. With me. Hold the door.
He's in another room, yet another classroom. That classroom is empty as well. Got two other officers with him.
Bathroom. Let's go.
Small bathroom. They cleared the bathroom, and they're running out to the next room.
Just move right. Cover left.
I'm going to pause it for a second to help. They don't know, and they have not heard shots yet. They're about to hear them. And the Officer Rex Engelbert, who has taken control of this situation, and he's got two other officers with him who are doing a great job. And I got emotional the first two times I watched it. I'm getting emotional again now because the training that takes over, when he hears shots, he immediately stops clearing rooms because he knows that there's something going down that he needs to attend to immediately.
this with me. Take this.
He's about to go to another room now.
Take this door. Take this door. Take it.
He hears the shots. And starts running toward them.
I think it's upstairs. It sounds like it's upstairs.
Officers with short guns letting him take the lead. He's got a long gun. Passing. You can hear them more closely now. And get to a lobby area. He rounds a corner. And then he fires and kills the assailant, who was firing out of a window. That was Officer Rex Engelbert of the Metro Nashville Police Department. And there was movement. Because of the movement and because of the proximity that the individual was to several weapons, they fired again. That was the body cam footage from Rex Engelbert. There's about another 2 minutes of this. And this is the body cam footage of Michael Colazzo.
Go. There you go, second floor.
He's immediately getting to the second floor. Already, when he arrives, their shots have been fired. He can hear them.
No, locked door. Where did they go in? First floor, first floor, first floor. Hold there, y'all.
That door was locked, so it's going to go back down the stairs.
That door. Rifle first. Rifle first. Blue, go. Go, 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 go. Go.
You hear rifle first. He's telling me to get the long gun in there first as opposed to the short guns.
Move. Move. I'm with you. Go left. Hold on. Straight, straight.
Cleared bathrooms.
Go. Hit that stair. Hit the stairs. Go. Those stairs. Those stairs. Go. Go, 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 go. Go, go, go. I got it. Go.
They're climbing the stairs to the second floor now.
Keep pushing. Go.
Keep pushing.
Shots fired. Shots fired. Shots fired. Move. Right, right, right. Push it LPVO. Push it LPVO. Go right.
And that was the shot from Officer Colazzo ending the threat. I do not play that without recognition that it's incredibly sensitive, even just the audio. And actually, I got a little more emotional than I anticipated that I would when one of the officers, Officer Engelbert, starts running. I mean, he hears the shots and he just starts running toward the shots. It is far too often in our society that when we talk about police officers, we're regularly talking about them doing something wrong. And every day, there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of men and women across the United States of America that put on a uniform and are prepared to do exactly what these two officers did heroically. And it should be recognized. And we should not allow, even in these moments, There was a time where I wanted to give grace to certain individuals that are anti-cop. I do not give you grace today. You own the numbers. You're the reason why fewer and fewer individuals want to go into this noble profession. Why would you? You're the reason that there are early retirements, in part, and you have to own that, especially considering the bravery of the men and the women that serve every day. And I'm not going to let you forget it. All right, let's talk to David in Hendersonville. David, thank you for your call and your patience. Good afternoon.
How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well. Thank you, David. What's on your mind?
Well, first things first, those two officers, they should be decorated. Without a doubt, there's a lot of officers that can learn from them, and you know that they need to definitely acknowledge them.
I'll tell you, David. I got every time. I've watched that 3 times now. And when Officer Collazo says keep pushing, because he heard because the officer in front of him was, and I'm not saying that officer did anything wrong, but was hesitating because they weren't really sure the nature of the shots, and it gives me goosebumps. It really does.
Matt, I've got to put a lot of the blame for things like this on the left-wing media and some of the politicians that is pushing these lies. They've never read the bills that was passed. They're just saying that Tennessee has banned medical procedures for transgenders. They don't tell the whole story. They just flat out lie. And I believe they are partial to blame.
No, I absolutely agree. It is. I agree completely. David, hold on a second. Let me get to Joe Biden. The president of the United States is speaking, and I'm going to see if we can share some of his remarks with you. Pull him up there, Bill.
Should all be with us still. By the way, have a seat if you have one. They should still be with us. As a nation, this is not hyperbole, as a nation we owe these families more than our prayers. We owe them action. You know, we have to do more to stop this gun violence, of ripping communities apart and ripping apart the soul of this nation. To protect our children so they learn how to read and write instead of duck and cover in the classroom. You know, we need to act. These are weapons of war. I'm a Second Amendment guy. I have 2 shotguns. My sons have shotguns. You know, but our states, you know, everybody thinks somehow the Second Amendment is absolute. You're not allowed to go out and own an automatic weapon. You're not allowed to own a machine gun. You're not allowed to own a flamethrower. You're not allowed to own so many other things. Why in God's name do we allow these weapons of war in our streets and at our schools?
That's about enough. That's all I need. Thank you to the President of the United States. Someone has finally got to him and told him to stop saying you're not allowed to own a cannon. Did you notice that? For years, he's been doing the cannon line. And now finally someone has gotten to him and said, don't say you can't own a cannon because you can't own a cannon.
So he's replaced it with flamethrower.
Which is not true either. You can't own a flamethrower. And it's also not true that you can't own an automatic weapon. It's difficult, but you can go through the procedure to own an automatic weapon as well. Because largely speaking, the Second Amendment is what it is. More calls coming up, 152 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Okay, so it's a dangerous and crazy time when it comes to your mortgage, right? Because if you're thinking about buying a home, if you're thinking about selling your home, you don't know where these interest rates are or where they're going. Let not your heart be troubled. Friends, Accurate Mortgage Group is to the rescue. They've got their payment reduction program that helps buyers enjoy a lower interest rate, a mortgage payment with the same flat interest rate. Let me say it right. This is a normal fixed rate loan. It just has lower payments for the first 2 years to ease into that and to help you make the transition from one home to another. It's a great incentive for not just buyers, but for sellers as well to make their homes more attractive. Helps both parties. It's a win-win situation. Plus, if you're looking to pay off higher interest credit card debt, credit card rates are soaring. In many cases, doubling minimum credit card payments. Don't put up with that. Sink that. Get rid of that credit card debt by refinancing your mortgage. Find out how with a cash-out refi from Mike, Joe, Hino, or any of the rest of the group at Accurate Mortgage Group. They're located in Cool Springs. You can see them in person or on the phone. I've got that telephone number. Accurate Mortgage Group is a division of Acopia LLC, an equal housing lender, NMLS 4664. Go to their website right now at AccurateMTG.com. That's AccurateMTG.com. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you. One, two, three. Super Talk 99.7 WTN winding out hour number 2. We've got another hour to go. We'll rack up the beginnings of the Chief John Drake press conference from about an hour and a half ago. I think many of you missed that. We want to share it with you, plus your telephone calls to come. Also, yes, many of you are sending me information about the legality of flamethrowers in the United States of America. Somebody send it to Joe Biden. He doesn't know. Joe don't know. More coming up. One more hour to go. Stand by.
Two o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 57 degrees, a sunny, nice day in Nashville. Weather coming up in about 3 minutes. There was another press conference concerning the Covenant School shooting that ended in 6 victims dead, 3 children and 3 adults. Here's Police Chief John Drake with some new information concerning the shooter, 28-year-old female Audrey Hale.
We know that they felt that she had one weapon and that she sold it. She was under care, doctor's care, for an emotional disorder. Law enforcement knew nothing about the treatment she was receiving, but her parents felt that she should not own weapons. They were under the impression that when she sold the one weapon that she did not own anymore. As it turned out, she had been hiding several weapons within the house.
Drake went on to say that Hale legally purchased 7 firearms at 5 different gun stores. Spokesman Don Aaron said that the rumors circling around that Hale was targeting specific people or individuals in the shootings has no evidence to back it as of now. He did confirm that the Covenant School was a target. That evidence has been confirmed in manifestos in which Chief Drake said detailed writings about other locations, maps of Covenant School, and how she would enter and then murder people. He said the manifesto is very long, and the FBI, along with local officials, are working through those details right now. The victims were spread out in different locations. That's another detail Chief Drake went over. Hale met Catherine Kuntz, the head of the school, in the hallway and shot her. She shot the custodian, Mike Hill, through some glass doors in which she entered. And there is still no motive attached to the shooting at this point in the investigation. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN 205. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for being with us. We'll get back to your calls coming up in just a couple of minutes, maybe call it 15 minutes, as I believe we're about to have a guest on the Super Talk hotline. If we can connect with him, we will do so with Brink Fiddler in just a moment. He's obviously he's very close to this situation, and I'm sensitive to that. Brink, as you know, has become a friend. We met one another when he offered training to Cumulus Nashville, and he has since not only become an advertiser, and I am an endorser of his, but he's also become a friend. And he trained the Covenant Group about a year ago and is a part of the friend group of that organization, a friend group of that church, and his personal friends with someone, it's my understanding, that lost their little girl yesterday morning. And he just contacted me, and see if you can't connect with him. He said that he could come on today. And I spoke with him via text yesterday. He's in Memphis. He was in the midst of a school assessment, a 2-day school assessment, one of the things that they do at Defense Systems. And obviously, it very quickly became a very emotional situation as he the school recognized the training that he had provided. And I said to him yesterday that he saved lives, and I believe that with all of the fiber of my being. So we're hoping to have Brink on the show. All right, let's explain where we are, and hopefully Bell will be able to hook up with him. Let's explain where we are. Obviously, we continue to digest the circumstances surrounding the Covenant School tragedy, where we lost 6 lives, 3 staff members, and 3 young people. Brink Fiddler is a voice heard often during these times, and I never wanted it to be this close to home. Never want to talk to him again in this capacity, but sadly we do. Brink, brother, good afternoon. Welcome.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me.
Are you still in Memphis?
We are. Yeah, I'm still at that school down here, but we're my other team members are handling what needs to be handled right now, so I had a few minutes.
Well,
sorry. I know it was the last minute, but
Brink, I appreciate you talking with us. This one, obviously, this is what you do for a living. You try to save every single soul that you possibly can. This one seems so much more personal.
Yeah, obviously it is. I mean, we trained them last year. I know 2 of those, the 3 adults, and have a connection to one of the children's families. So. Yeah, it's very tough. This one stings really bad. I mean, they all sting, but this one, for me, personally, stings really bad.
What, if anything, just based on your initial assessment, can you say on this? I mean, or can you say about it? I mean, I feel like the school teachers took your training to heart, and I say that because we heard stories of kick plates being down. We heard stories of shades being down. These are things that I learned from you.
Yeah, so what I know so far, I've talked to several Metro police officers that responded to the scene and that had to deal with going in there. And so I guess first let me start there, because the body camera footage is out, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. And let me say, I cannot imagine a more perfect response scenario than what I saw by those officers. They, 2 had pistols, 1 had a shotgun, and 1 had a rifle. And they went in that building, and there was nothing stopping them. Now, when they entered, there was no, we refer to it in the industry as there was no stimuli. There was no gunshots to follow when they first went in.
So they were clearing. They were clearing, right? Yeah.
That's right, just like they were trained to do. And then as they got to the top of that stairwell, which I'm just obviously intimately familiar with that floor plan, the top of that stairwell on the second floor is right by the administrative offices, which is probably where Dr. Kuntz was coming from, I would guess. Shortly thereafter, they started receiving stimuli, and they did exactly what they were supposed to do, and they moved very swiftly to that stimuli. And they had the wherewithal in the moment to let the rifle guy move up first because of the distance of the shot, and handled their business. I cannot say anything else about how well that was done and the tactical response. That really segues into what happened yesterday with the teachers, because I've heard from a handful of those teachers already.
Well, hold on before you go there, because I don't want to get in front of it. I I made the decision, although it's very much a visual, and I encouraged people to go watch it. It's difficult to watch because you understand. I mean, one, you just put yourself in the position of those officers and you feel anxious, even though we know the outcome. And two, we played it on the air, and I didn't realize when he heard the shots. I think this is Officer Engelbert, Brink. When he started running, I started crying because it's everything that you ask of a police officer to do. That as soon as he heard the shot, I mean, the room clearing was done, and he was getting to that target as quickly as he could. It was just it. I mean, I challenge you not to get emotional watching it, folks.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's the way it's supposed to be done, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's your life before somebody else's. That's what you signed up for, period. And he clearly did, and did a phenomenal job. All those officers did. I really couldn't. I mean, from a training standpoint, from a response standpoint, I couldn't ask for anything better. I mean, Chief Drake is extremely proud of them, as he should be. I mean, we all should be. Like, this whole community really should be, right? I mean, because they did it right. And 15 minutes is an eternity. I mean, of course, Matt, you've been through our training. You understand the timelines and all that kind of stuff. So I do want to segue, because I have heard from some of the teachers, and I want to talk about the same thing and at the same breath and give them the real credit, because at the end of the day, they were the ones that had to act, right? They were the ones that had to implement things and respond under stress and get their kids where they needed to be and get things locked down, and they did it. However, several of them were able to evade the property. And, we talk about specifics on where to go when they do that, depending on where they are in the building. And what I'm being told, they did exactly that. And it made a difference. But they made the difference, right? At the end of the day, in the moment, they're the ones that did it, right? So all that to say, I got mixed feelings about it. I do want to reconnect with them. A lot of them have already reached out, because I want to, but I also want to go over, as tough as it's going to be for me, I want to go over to that school, and I want to walk every step and understand exactly what happened, just like I do in all these other ones. This one just hits a lot harder for me. But at the end of the day, those teachers made a world of difference. From my understanding is they did not open a single classroom door, even for law enforcement. And I get asked this all the time, and they probably ask to. And what I tell them is, don't open the door. If it's law enforcement, they'll have a key or they'll open it themselves. And from what I've heard, close to 80 doors were shotgun breached yesterday, and that's a good thing. Okay, don't take that as a wrong thing. That means those teachers did not open those doors, period. So they certainly deserve as much credit as those police officers.
No, I get emotional just hearing you talking about it, because I know how close you are, not just to the members of the Metro Nashville Police Department, not just to the people that you serve, but this community at large. And I just want to thank you. I know you don't want me to do that. That's the type of guy that you are, but your training saved people's lives yesterday, and I thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate it, Matt. I in the same breath, want to make sure I give credit to the people that had to endure, and now the really hard part starts, right? Yesterday was terrible and tragic, but these are scars that are going to last a lifetime. And that's one of the things we talk about in our training is the mental trauma. And
that's right.
Please have a plan to deal with this, because anybody dying that's close to you is mentally traumatizing. When it involves children, obviously it's 10 times worse, and it's going to be a long time for those scars to even begin to heal. And they got a long road ahead of them. But
when we talk about, and I know we'll have an opportunity, and tell me whenever you have to go, but when we talk with regard to training and making sure that you reset your training and you take it personally and as a business, that you don't stop researching and doing everything that you need to do to make sure that you're providing tools to your clients that they can utilize. You allowed me to witness an experiment that you did several weeks ago, and I thought of you when we learned that the assailant breached the doors by shooting out the glass in the doors, because you just recently tested some technology that could be utilized in future builds that could slow that assailant down in that way.
Yeah, glass has always been a weak point. That was the way the shooter at Sandy Hook accessed the building. He shot through the glass and just raked out a hole with his gun. And as you saw in the product testing we were doing a few weeks ago, and there are several on the market, a few of which we have tested, that can be applied to glass that prevent that. And I do feel comfortable saying this, as sad as it is for me to say this, but I feel comfortable saying that had any of those security laminate products been on the glass entryways of this school, that shooter would not have breached the glass entryway. She did not show up with tools. She showed up with guns. And as you witnessed personally, Matt, and most people, can either look online or whatever, you're not getting through that stuff without a bunch of time, effort, energy, and tools. You're not getting through it with just guns at the end, period. And so I think there's obviously a conversation that needs to be had moving forward on construction of new facilities and schools and things like that. I know our governor has a school safety working group that's been working on this since Uvalde. I've met with a few of them. I've actually, as legislative liaison, came and sat through our training, and they are working on doing some things from a legislative standpoint that are requirements, right? Because why in the world we still have classroom doors that are still not lockable from inside the classroom is beyond me, when that was the number one recommendation in the Sandy Hook after action report. But so many schools still don't have that, and that's because nobody's made them do it. And the reason they haven't done it is it costs money, and the sting wears off, right? This one stings. Uvalde stung. We have to have sting to make action sometimes. As sad as that sounds, that's reality. So I hope that there's the serious hard look at forced entry protection for glass moving forward for all facilities, but especially our most vulnerable with our schools.
Any other? And once again, I know that your time's limited, and we'll once you have an afternoon, I'd love to have you on to answer questions. A lot of folks in the audience have questions for you, but just any other overall thoughts, obviously outside of the sympathies that we send out to those affected by this, yourself included, by the way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's been a rough 24, 25, 28 hours, however long it's been. Because you can imagine, like, I don't know if you can, but I mean, I know those people. You've been through the training. It's a pretty intimate training experience, and to have that unfold, and not that I could have done anything different, right, or could have been there or whatever, but being in Memphis makes it even harder because I do want to be there and at least be there for those people and understand more, but. We'll make time to do that because to your point, people do have questions. I do know that a lot of people know who Tracy is, and she's the one handling business for me right now that allows me to do this and talk with you. But her husband was one of the first few people in that building too, and he did his job and did it right. And people just, it's been such a stigmatization of the police in the last several years, and I hope that in most of your audience we don't have that problem. I would say, generally speaking, if we got typically conservatives or pro law enforcement, and that just is what it is. But if people are listening right now, I would say take the time to thank a police officer if you see one in the next year, because it is the most thankless job in the world. They are so short-handed right now; it's not even funny. And they are still finding a way to get the job done and keep people safe and take evil out of this world, which is their job. So I would just say, if you all have the wherewithal and you see a police officer, take the time to thank them.
Thank you for spending a few moments with us. I know you're busy today, and I know it's been a very, very difficult couple of days. Come by and see us when you're back in town. We'll talk on the radio, and I'll maybe buy you a beer or something afterwards. Okay.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Brink, thank you. There's Brink Fiddler joining us. He's obviously with Defense Systems. I've had the pleasure of getting to know him well enough, attend enough of his courses that I call him a friend. He's a good friend. He's a good man. And I know that he cares more than most. I think he takes it very, very personally. And he's told me that he feels like that he can save lives if He just gets to people and arms them. You don't have to arm people with guns every time, although that's a good thing. Arming them with information. And Brink will not say this because he's not the type of guy to say it. I'll say it. The man trained the Covenant School to the point that he taught them about hard corners. He taught them about getting out of sight of the gunman. He talked about barricading the doors. He talked about not letting anybody in, even if they say that they're police. And you heard him just say that he had knowledge of an individual in that room that they had to shotgun doors out of classrooms because they weren't going to believe that it was police just because these folks said it was police. And that's the right thing to do. So thank you, Brink, and all of Nashville Police Department. We appreciate it. 2:20, quick timeout. Back with a few of your calls in a moment. Plus, we'll hear from Chief Drake for those who missed it. That's coming up on The Murphy Show. Hey, friends, the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief is in Franklin, and they want to see you. So it used to be, you thought, oh, if I have back issues, I'll go to a chiropractor, but it was kind of limited to back issues, right? You thought, well, back, chiropractor. Otherwise, I'll just deal with it or pop some pills or whatever. No, it's not just anything that moves, really. Shoulders, neck, back, spine, knees, joints. If you have trouble, they have answers at the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. And it doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg either because they have very cost-effective ways to get you in there, get you examined, and get you out without the need for pills and certainly without the consideration for surgery. It is time that you contacted the Dr. Gill Center. Here's that telephone number for all involved. Get an examination scheduled today with Dr. Wendy, Dr. D, Dr. V, or any of the rest of the crew. They have an entire staff waiting for you. 615-882-4838. 882-4838 for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin.
We take a look at what Nashville Metro Police Chief John Drake said in the latest press conference concerning the Covenant School shooting. That and more 30 minutes after the hour right here, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
2:25, thinking back morning, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy show in progress. We'll be here until 3 o'clock. Brian Wilson in the drive at that time. Information-fueled and opinion-driven news talk radio on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's been heavy, and I understand that, but rightly so. Talking about heavy issues involving the shooting that happened yesterday and the aftermath of the shooting, what we know about the shooter themselves, and some of the miscommunication and, frankly, intentional mischaracterization of items happening in Tennessee that might have led to someone who already has mental issues. You fan those flames, and these sorts of things can happen with regard to mental health. We're talking about all of that with you, and I open up the phone lines again. And thank you to Brink Fiddler, who had a couple of minutes. He's in the midst of a site survey in Memphis, has been for the last couple of days. And I know that this is sensitive to him, obviously, because he helped train the Covenant School. And as I mentioned, I believe that training saved who knows how many lives. He also mentioned a product that I witnessed Brink and his team test. And without laying any blame or fault to any location, any business, especially the Covenant School, I would tell you that more and more businesses are deciding to lay laminate on top of glass in order to make it not impossible to breach, but far more difficult. If you watch the video, there's two sets of videos that have come out. One, body cam footage of the two officers that actually opened fire, Engelbert and Collazo. This is video surveillance cameras from outside and inside the building that was released last night. And in that, you see the perpetrator of this crime. She pulls into the parking lot, drives around the parking lot, and parks. Then you see the front glass door. There's double doors, both glass, and she shoots out with one of her weapons, one of her guns. She shoots out the door. Then we're told that as she gets into the entryway, that's where she encountered Mike Hill and shot and killed him. He was the custodian at the Covenant School. But the shooting out of that door is going to be a point of emphasis, I believe, in the future when it comes to facilities where you see a lot of people coming and going, and how to prevent a cost-effective way to prevent entry. Because obviously, given a right amount of time and tools, you can enter that front door even if it had laminate on it. But the product that I watched Brink Fiddler test, there's no way. He's right. There's zero chance that this individual gets through that door. Not with what they brought. 1554 writes, I'm a pastor at Cookeville, Tennessee, and our lobby is nothing but glass windows and doors. What is the product Mr. Fiddler is talking about that can be applied to those windows to better secure them? Jimmy, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to get the company that I saw is, I don't know necessarily one that Brink is recommending. He's seen a number of these. It is an aftermarket. This is what I'll tell you. It's an aftermarket laminate product that you have different price points with different levels of protection. Well, what you're trying to accomplish, you're trying to slow people down. You're trying to make it time ineffective for them to get through those doors. And so, Mr. Jimmy, I will communicate with Brink. You keep listening to the show, if not today, tomorrow, and I'll give you some specific recommendations. But this is a product that lays over the existing glass, and there's, like I say, different levels of protection. I watched Brink fire a 40 caliber. Well, no, I think it was a 44 mag. I think it was a 44.
That's what you told me.
It was a 44 Magnum. I almost said 40. But it was one of the pieces of glass, it's a smaller piece, that it stopped 3 shots with a 44 Magnum from probably 10 yards. Did not breach them. Now, the glass that we're talking about, though, Jimmy, a gun will breach the glass, but it will not shatter the glass. So something like an AR-style weapon that the perpetrator in this case had, if they shoot through the glass, the bullet will go through the glass. It will not stop it. But it does not destroy the integrity of the structure of the glass, meaning that they have to use something else, some sort of tool. Brink shot his, I don't know what it was. I think it was a 5.56 at the glass and put like 10 rounds in it. And then we all were given crowbars and hammers and baseball bats and told, get through the glass. And none of us could do it. Now, we could have done it given the right amount of time, but that's what all of this is about. It's about time to get to safety, time to recognize the threat and to prevent it from coming in. So I'll give you the specifics, Jimmy. I just want to make sure that I'm giving you the right answers. We'll get to more of your calls coming up in just a moment. It's 2:31 News Time with Mac Maury on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.231, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. 57 degrees, a sunny day right now in Music City. Weather coming up in about 2 minutes. Nashville Metro Police Chief John Drake and Chief Spokesman Don Aaron addressed the media today with new information on the Covenant School shooting that ended in 7 dead, 6 victims, 3 children, and 3 adult staff members. Here's Drake giving some more information on the manifesto at the Hales home.
There's several different writings about other locations. There were locations, there was talks about the school. There was a map of the school, a drawing of how potentially she would enter and the assaults that would take place. It's quite a bit of writing to it. I have not read the entire manifesto. Our team and the FBI have been working on this.
Drake explained that Hale was under a, quote, doctor's care for an emotional disorder, and her parents did not believe her to be mentally stable enough to own any firearms in a trustworthy manner. Her parents felt that she had 1 weapon and that she had sold it, when in reality Hale had owned 7 firearms that were hidden around the house, and they were all legally bought from 5 different gun stores. Hale's mom saw her leave the house yesterday morning with a red bag. She had asked what was in it. Hale did not answer. It was confirmed that Hale was a student at Covenant School at one point in time and that this was a targeted shooting. The manifesto details maps of the school along with writings that Drake said go on for quite a long time. And Chief Spokesman Don Aaron turned down any rumors of individuals being targeted, with him saying there's no evidence of that at this point, and there's still no motive attached to this shooting, and the investigation goes on. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
All right, fellas, so you're feeling sluggish, not yourself, run down, and you feel like, well, Murphy, you know how it goes. I'm in my mid-40s. That's the way you get. No, I don't know that that's the way you get, and I don't think you need to be that way, and I think you need to call the Tennessee Men's Clinic and see if they can help. They've got 2 locations to serve you, convenient to anywhere within the sound of my voice. I know some of you out of Columbia and Spring Hill and all points south, you're thinking, man, it's a long drive up to Nashville. Well, now they're in Cool Springs, so we're shortening that drive considerably. This drive is worth it, however, because we can get you back to energetic living. We can get you back to living the way that you want. And yeah, if you're having issues in the bedroom, vim, verve, vitality, or even encouragement, it's time to get with the Tennessee Men's Clinic, okay? Tennessee Men's Clinic can be found at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. 2 ways to get to them. Also, you can call them. Go ahead and make that appointment that so many others have made. 615-208-9090. 208-9090. I encourage you to contact the guys at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. 237 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let's, Bell, if you have it there, let's rack the beginning of Chief Drake's press conference from some 2 hours ago. I know some of you were perhaps at lunch, or maybe you're just joining us and perhaps missed a little bit of this. I don't know that we'll have another opportunity to hear from the chief later on this afternoon. I don't know what the schedule is, but they held a press conference right around 12:15 this afternoon in front of the Covenant School. And we'll hear from Metro Nashville Police Department Chief John Drake. Listen in.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Don Aaron with the Nashville Police Department. We want to give you a brief update this afternoon as to what we know about the Covenant murders on yesterday. There's one rumor going on throughout the community that we want to take a moment to clear up. There are those who think that specific individuals were targeted by the shooter who entered the building on Monday. We have no evidence that individuals were specifically targeted. This school, this church building, was a target of the shooter, but we have no information at present to indicate that the shooter was specifically targeting any one of the 6 individuals who were murdered. Chief John Drake will now update you on the progress of the investigation overnight and this morning, including what we know about the individual's purchases of firearms over the past couple of years. Again, this will be a brief briefing today. Chief John Drake.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for being here. Just a brief update of what we know right now. We've interviewed the parents of Audrey Hale, and we've determined that Audrey bought 7 firearms from 5 different local gun stores here legally. They were legally purchased. 3 of those weapons were used yesterday during this horrific tragedy that happened. We know that they felt that she had 1 weapon and that she sold it. She was under care, doctor's care, for an emotional disorder. Law enforcement knew nothing about the treatment she was receiving, but her parents felt that she should not own weapons. They were under the impression that when she sold the 1 weapon that she did not own anymore. As it turned out, she had been hiding several weapons within the house. We also don't have a motive at this time. We feel that the students that were targeted were randomly targeted. There was not any particular student that she was looking for at the time of the incident. And that's what we know as I speak, and we'll take any questions that you have.
Can you give us any more details about that manifesto?
What was the manifesto?
So in the manifesto, there's several different writings about other locations. There were locations, there was talks about the school. There was a map of the school, a drawing of how potentially she would enter and the assaults that would take place. It's quite a bit of writing to it. I have not read the entire manifesto. Our team and the FBI has been working on this.
Chief, can you clarify where exactly the units were located? You mentioned the common area. Were they all together, the students and the adults at the same time? Where were they?
So they were spread out in different locations. When I went into the actual church, the kids had already been transported to the hospital. Also, the 2 of the adults, I did see the head school person, and she was in the hallway by the office. That's the only one. They were spread out. Wasn't in one common area, but they were spread out.
Chief Drake, can you talk about the response in terms of targeting other buildings, other places?
There was some writings in the manifesto about other locations, but as far as it being an actual target, I can't confirm that at this time.
Chief, can we talk about your body cam footage? Do you feel like your officers did everything right?
One at a time, I'm sorry.
Just about the 6 victims who were killed. Where exactly were they? Were they walking through the hallways when this happened? And I also heard peripherally that perhaps the head of the school may have ran towards the gun or the shooter?
It's very possible the head of the school could have done that. I can't confirm that one way or the other. I do know she was in the hallway by herself. There was a confrontation. I'm sure you can tell the way she was laying in the hallway. There was the custodian, the African American, as she shot through the door to enter. She sprayed rounds through the glass, striking him. You could see where he came to rest. As far as the others, they were just spread out in different locations.
You mentioned that ammunition was there.
I can't say it was a confrontation, but they were met. She met the head person in the hallway.
This man right here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Chief, you mentioned the guns, the multiple guns, and that the shooter was under the care of a doctor. Is there any law in this state that would have allowed police to take those guns away from this person had it been reported?
If it had been reported, there's not a law for that, but had it been reported that she was suicidal or that she was going to kill someone and had been made known to us, then we would have tried to get those weapons.
All right, for the most part, that is the press conference. It kind of devolves from there. There's a couple of other questions asked, but that is Chief John Drake earlier today, roughly about 2.5 hours ago, answering questions from assembled media. The one question there, it's important to note, ours is not a perfect system, but we need to have a discussion about better ways to identify and better ways to isolate individuals that have the mental capacity to do harm to others and are a direct threat to other people or to themselves. Precognition is not a perfect science. I mean, what's the movie that I'm thinking of? Minority Report with the precogs, where they start arresting people based on things that they are going to do. That is a difficult and slippery slope to some degree, but it's a conversation that we need to be having. James wants to have that very same conversation right now. Hey, James, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm well, James. What's on your mind?
Well, I've noticed over the past couple of decades, there seems to be more and more people with mental issues. And I just recently read where there's a lawsuit against the EPA for a particular chemical that's not only in our water, but possibly in overprocessed foods that can cause brain disorders as well as lower IQs. And I'm wondering if that may also be causing the mental health issues as well. It's a neurotoxin, and it's being put in water supply all across the country. That's fluoride.
Well, fluoride's been around for a while, right?
Right. It has. And since they started putting it into municipal water supplies, seems to me like as though the number of people with mental health issues has started going up.
I don't believe that it's the fluoride in our water causing the shootings that we're seeing. If that's what you're asking, I understand why it's a question, but I don't believe that that's responsible for the shootings.
Well, I'm not saying that it would be 100% responsible, but I kind of wonder if it may not be having a little bit of an effect on it.
But
it's going to have mental issues.
If all of us,
whether they
so you're saying maybe? What I haven't done enough research on it to understand what fluoride would do to someone's mental capacity in order to cause a degradation to the point that they would kill other people. So I can't really speak to that. I know this. That I've drank from municipal water supplies all my life. I'm 49 years old, and I've never come close to killing anybody. So,
right. Well, it's just one of those subjects where I feel that it's getting to the point now where maybe we should have more research into it to find out.
Well, whether it's fluoride in the water supply or, I don't know, whatever the hell they're putting in our chickens to make them grow so fast and make the breast of the chicken meat grow so big and all of that genetically designed garbage. There's a lot of ways to look at this, no doubt, and I'm not discounting any of them. Sandy is next in Gallatin. Sandy, thank you for your call. Good afternoon.
Hey, Matt. First of all, I would like to say thank you for being compassionate and also for not hiding the fact that you have faith in God. My comment was actually, haven't listened all day, but do you know if the glass door that she shot through was part of the church or part of the school? I know they're one and the same, but...
Yeah, I think they're under the same footprint, but I don't know. I mean, there's the short answer. I've seen the entry point.
Yeah.
I've seen the hallway that she apparently entered. I think there's a cut in the surveillance video because either at the point of her entry or soon thereafter, she killed the custodian, and I think they cut that out. So
yeah.
I don't think we get a good sense, but I don't know.
Yeah. I was just wondering, if people who entered the church would have access to the school or if there was a separation to make it more safe. That was my
just based on the appearance of the hallway right soon after she enters in, it looks like that's the school portion of the facility, but that's just a guess.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate all of your input.
Sandy, thank you. God bless. I appreciate your call, and I appreciate your thoughtful comments. 248, as many as we can possibly get to before we have to hand off to Brian Wilson. Let's go to Bernadette in Nashville. Hello, Bernadette.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. Hope you are.
Oh, I cried yesterday. I was with Miss Brooks yesterday, and I'm calling on her behalf. I was with her yesterday, and we went to Catholic Mass, and we were just we couldn't even help but just cry because the whole situation just could have been avoided if we would just get mental health facilities in these communities. That's what we need. That's what's the gist behind this. We can throw all these bunch of things and gun rights and this and that and all this other stuff, but the bottom line is mental health facilities. And so we're praying. The Brooks campaign is praying to the families and everyone involved, even the officers who had the witnesses, all the children, all the parents, all the trauma that these kids are going to have to go through. She's just really sorry for that, and she's praying. We're all praying. Her whole team is praying for everyone involved and for Nashville as a whole to just heal from this, come together, and let's move forward in a more positive way. And let's just get this city back on track, and let's just do this together and not separately. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Well, Bernadette, thank you. And tell Natisha that we'll talk to her very soon. Obviously, Bernadette working alongside Natisha Brooks. Natisha Brooks running for mayor of the city of Nashville. I see a lot of faces that may or may not be running for mayor on the city for the city of Nashville on my television screens right now. I saw Heidi Campbell a few minutes ago on CNN. Find that interesting. I mentioned that we invited John Cooper on the show. I invited him through TJ Ducklow, his communications director. I believe Bell sent out an email communication as well. We also invited Congressman Andy Ogles on. I know Andy and I have something of a history, and I said in my invitation, Andy, I understand we have something of a history, but I want to set that aside for the betterment of the 5th Congressional District. I believe that is in the Covenant School is in his congressional district, and I've not heard back from Andy. Hopefully, he'll be communicating. I'm certain that Andy is already in communication with his constituents and the people in and around that area. I know Brian Wilson will have 4 hours of what will be excellent talk radio on this subject and many others. This obviously dominating the news cycle for us today. 251, we'll put a cap on it in just a moment on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Metro Police Chief John Drake updated the city with the latest findings in this investigation into the school shooting. We'll let you know what those are. 3 o'clock right here, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you so much, Mac Morey, for everything you do this day and every day. Thanks to you for joining us. It was a different type of show. Hopefully tomorrow back to a little bit of normalcy, although this is a story and a subject that's not going anywhere anytime soon. God bless you. Thank you for being with us. Don't forget The Drive with Brian Wilson on the way next for another 4 hours of radio excellence. We're back at high noon tomorrow. Until then, don't just look for the helpers. Be one. We'll talk again tomorrow. Until then, so long.